And so if during the entire time in campaign season, you're saying that you're down with trans people or like the LGBT community, and then you lose an election, and then the next day you say all that stuff was wrong. I actually think what people are more upset about is someone was doing something they didn't believe and just saying something. Like, if you actually weren't about that life, why did you campaign as though you were?
Democrats are absolutely falling apart. It's not just woke media. It's not just left-wing YouTubers. It's the entirety of the Democratic establishment that is falling apart. We now have AOC in this clip who is going after Kamala Harris and other Democrats for being fake, quote unquote fake, is what AOC is saying. As you can see, she's asked this question that I believe she was answering on Instagram. It says, do you buy the argument that woke loses elections, e.g. saying Latinx or Latinx, however you want to say it? Here is AOC's response to that question.
Personally, I don't. I think that a lot of voters really don't like fake people, and they're sick and tired of fake politicians. And so what I actually think is worse is saying something you don't believe. And so if during the entire time in campaign season, you're saying that you're down with trans people or like the LGBT community, and then you lose an election, and then the next day you say all that stuff was wrong. I actually think what people are more upset about is someone was doing something they didn't believe and just saying something. Like, if you actually weren't about that life, why did you campaign as though you were? That, I think, is the actual core issue of the problem.
I don't think so at all. I mean, number one, the story here is that AOC is definitely going after Kamala Harris here, and probably other Democrats as well. She's obviously not naming names, but she's going after them. But also, that doesn't make any sense for why they lost the election, because they didn't find out that these Democrats didn't believe these things truly until after they lost, and everybody started saying, maybe we should change our strategy up because people aren't electing us. So therefore, I mean, it's obvious that they don't believe any of these things. You have to be a lunatic to believe all these things that they push. They're only saying it to get elected. So therefore, when they don't get elected and they don't work, it's natural for them to say things like, let's change our strategy up because it didn't work to get elected. That doesn't make sense for why they lost the election, though, because they didn't change the strategy up until after they lost the election. But more important story here being, AOC is going after the other Democrats out there, especially Kamala Harris. Another interesting clip that I wanted to bring up here is this one right here from the Young Turks, where Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur talk about this clip and another clip from AOC, where she's going after Democrats, and their take on it, I think, is very, very interesting. Let's see what Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur have to say about that AOC clip.
Absorbed by the Democratic establishment. She has been willing to play ball with the Democratic establishment. I mean, and look, to be quite frank, AOC's previous reputation stays with her. And that previous reputation was that of a disruptor, an individual who's an outsider who has managed to infiltrate the establishment. But more and more, she has presented herself as part of the establishment, as someone who thinks that she can play ball with these corporate Democrats and somehow use that as a way of influencing them and the policies that they end up passing. That doesn't work. It just doesn't. And so she should see this as a warning. If your constituents catch on to the fact that you're now, trying to play ball with the establishment Democrats, the corporate Democrats, they're going to treat you the same way they treat other establishment Democrats. You get what I'm saying?
Of course I do. I mean, look, in this case, I was there from the beginning, and I know that when we first started Just Democrats, and we heavily emphasized AOC, we all thought she was an outsider who was really brave and willing to take on the establishment. And then when she got elected, she did in the beginning, and she rejected money from Nancy Pelosi and did it without asking anyone else about it. And it was wonderfully brave and terrific. And then she did the sit-in Nancy Pelosi's office, and she got intensely popular from being the outsider populist, right? And then from then on, a blip here and there where she would slightly disagree with her beloved colleagues in the Congress. They're so important. They go to lunch all the time. Their feelings are so precious. So she barely challenged them. She's been riding off that. And by the way, what has allowed her to ride that populist sentiment that she originally accumulated rightly, right? Because ironically, since she didn't question the establishment media were like, oh, good. Oh, she is a great outsider, because now they realize she's not doing much. She's not much of an outsider. So that's a perfect thing to have a symbol of.
It's crazy how often this happens too. Like, so many people get elected, so many people get propped up for being anti-establishment, and then they just go in and they're part of the establishment after a few years or a few months. It's crazy how often that happens. One thing that I will agree with hardcore that the Young Turks say all the time, that Cenk Uygur and Ana Kasparian especially say all the time, the rest of the Young Turks are still absolute lunatics on basically every issue. Cenk Uygur and Ana Kasparian, though, all the time say that this is not a Republican versus Democrat issue anymore. This is an establishment versus anti-establishment, or how Cenk Uygur likes to put it, establishment versus populist issue. And I 100% agree. This is very much establishment versus anti-establishment. And when these people do get elected, I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what goes on, but I do know that there are certain people out there who are genuinely anti-establishment, like Bernie Sanders. I think Bernie Sanders is anti-establishment. I don't think AOC genuinely ever was anti-establishment. I think she was probably allowed to win as someone who was running as anti-establishment, knowing, like, with them knowing, the establishment knowing that AOC would fold and play ball with the establishment. Donald Trump is one of the most curious times that I have seen, curious people, cases, where I genuinely think Donald Trump is anti-establishment, and they try to stop him. I mean, they tried to take him out. They tried to kill him, and it didn't work. They tried to do the Russia stuff. It didn't work. They tried all of these things, everything that you could do, lie, cheat, steal, take him out, everything that they could do, use the DOJ against him, and it didn't work. And the guy still won. And a lot of people like Cenk Uygur say that they don't like Donald Trump because he takes donor money. He does, play ball with lobbyists. The difference between Donald Trump and anybody else who takes donor money is Donald Trump doesn't need the donor money. If it all dried up and Donald Trump didn't get another dime from donors, he would have been completely fine running the campaign on his own. And he proved that in 2016. He would have been completely fine. That's the difference. That's why I think Donald Trump is on the anti-establishment side. Now, some of his appointments, people are questioning. Some of the people that he's appointed for his cabinet, people are questioning because they are pretty establishment people. For the most part, though, I think he did a pretty good job on who he's appointed for his cabinet so far. And I do think Donald Trump is probably the best guy that we could get for president. They didn't allow him to become president. They tried to take him out. But somebody who wouldn't back down to almost being assassinated and them trying to throw him in jail, he's probably one of the only people who wouldn't back down after all that stuff happened, who is actually anti-establishment, who actually wants to make the three-letter agencies in the government better, less corrupt. I think he's one of the only people that exist out there that has that ability, because everybody else either would back down, like AOC, especially after they try to take you out and, threaten your family, raid your home, throw you in jail, all these things. Most people would back down and they say, okay, I'll play ball with you guys. I'll give in to the establishment. And Donald Trump's not that kind of guy. So it confuses me how Cenk Uygur and Ana Kasparian can be so correct about it being anti-establishment versus establishment and then still hate Donald Trump so much. It confuses the hell out of me.
Of change on the outside, continuity on the inside, right? So I know for a fact that she left that attitude behind, like basically fired everyone who was a populist inside her, congressional office, and decided to get comfortable. So if she gets her feelings hurt about that, that's okay. My job is truth telling. And another great thing for her is she could totally embarrass me and go back to being a populist and prove me wrong.
Oh no, please don't embarrass Cenk.
Oh boy, I will be humiliated. No, and so please, can you now go back to fighting the establishment? And so the proof is gonna be in the pudding, guys. So when they come around and she's like, oh, of course, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, wonderful leaders, they're terrific. I trust Hakeem. Trust Hakeem's my new thing, because trust Biden was, right? And we're going to just do resistance, fake resistance, not actually fighting your own party to get paid family leave pass, $15 minimum wage, all the things that they threw under the bus. And you didn't criticize them at all when they threw under the bus. So who's the real AOC? I don't know. I know who she used to be. Was a terrific person and a rebel and an outsider. I know who she is now. But who is she going to be in this next term? And
yeah, I think people, once they get inside as rebels and things like that, you know, people who are actually trying to make a difference, who are anti-establishment or populists, if James wants to put it that way, they get inside and realize that they can't really make a change like that. They're not going to actually be able to do anything because of the way that the system is designed. So they say, you know what? I'm not able to make any of the changes that I actually want to make. I might as well get something out of this, right? I might as well just make a bunch of money out of this, scam my supporters, and get rich, you know, and just play ball with the establishment. At a certain point, you just realize that nothing's actually going to change because of the way the system's set up. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about what AOC had to say about Kamala Harris and the rest of the Democrats being fake. And what do you think about what Janet Uger and Anna Kasparian had to say in response to AOC saying those things? Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this whole AOC versus the Democratic Party situation.